Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello and welcome to show number 25 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and agitated ankle biter. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Samard. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, how's it going? Actually,
also joining us,
I was going to say that I have a new identity now. According to Parody Wiki, I have achieved quite a lot. I'm rumored to have invented the Takashi Death Pinch.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Also joining us today is YouTuber Mike Phelps from the Age of Reason and Secular TV. Welcome to the show, Mike.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dave. And talking about wiki parodies, at least you don't have magic hands. I mean, I'm a world-class masseuse, if you go by what they say. My nickname is actually Magic Fingers in some circles.
Yeah.
Ah, did that change after the wiki parody?
Something like that.
Today is Thursday, April 23rd, 2015, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, April 27th, 2015. Today's newsreader is Jenny McDermott. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. So now the intro's out of the way. Mike, you want to tell the people what the Age of Reason and Secular TV are?
Well, the Age of Reason is a podcast that was inspired by the works of Thomas Paine, the Age of Reason itself, and I do a weekly interview / just topic-based podcast / webcast on Secular TV. And it's a pleasure to get to speak to some of the big names in the secular community and just the scientific fields that are intellectual powerhouses in their own right. I feel humbled to get that experience on a weekly basis. Secular TV is a joint coalition of YouTubers / content creators that strive to create the best secular content on YouTube and beyond. And it's just something that me and a few other friends set up for Randy Bevan was one of the co-founders and is president of Secular TV. He's one of the people that sort of helped set it up to where we aim to help content creators make the best possible content without dictating or delegating their content that they're creating. At the end of the day, they have all intellectual properties over what they're creating.
So if they want to use it for something else, then they can just take it and do something else with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So who are some of the intellectual giants that you've had on Age of Reason?
Aubrey de Grey, leader in the transhumanist community. Zoltan Ishvan, author, presidential candidate for the Transhumanist Party. David Brin, author. Those are just three people right there that have actually done TED Talks in the past too. So I sort of set it as my goal when I started the show to find people that are the intellectual leaders of their circles and be able to have one-on-one conversations or just panel-based discussions on topics that they consider themselves experts in.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, I'll be putting the links to all of your stuff in our show notes, and they'll be under the description under the video. The show notes can be found again at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. So if you want to get the links to his show and you're not watching it directly from Nicole's channel, then you'll be able to find them there, or you can go to Nicole's channel and watch the video and get it from under the video.
Well, I was going to ask, did you learn anything particularly unexpected when you were interviewing those people?
What was that, Nick?
Did you learn anything unexpected when you were talking to those people?
It humanizes them. It actually is a more humbling experience for me as a podcaster and an interviewer. I mean, getting to sort of see behind the facade that is the individual and get to know the person on a first-hand basis is something that I enjoy very much about my podcast. It's something that it has not only allowed me to do that, but allowed me to do that well. It allows me to see behind the mantle they set up for themselves and see the real person they are underneath that.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask, transhumanism that's the you said you talked to a few transhumanists. Are you involved in transhumanism yourself? Is that how you know them, or
I'm a transhumanist myself. Transhumanism is just one of many topics I've covered on The Age of Reason. I did a 5-part series with leaders in that community that were basically subject experts on each topic. It was a 5-part series I did to sort of help bring it down to the lowest common denominator and show that there's more of a scientific aspect to what transhumanism is instead of the spiritual aspect that a lot of people try to approach it from.
I didn't even know there was a spiritual component to transhumanism. Transhumanism for our audience, that's like Transcendence, the movie Transcendence, right? That's where you take.
It's like the movie Transcendence. It's into what one aspect of transhumanism is actually introducing the artificial in the biological and increasing human longevity indefinitely. That's one of the core dynamics and the base concept of how most people should approach it, because that's the driving force behind it.
Okay. Is there a cryogenic component?
There is. Anything that sort of has a increased longevity, sort of try to stave off that beast known as death as long as possible, sort of can fall under the title of transhumanism. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to transhumanism itself, and I just approach it from one small aspect myself, which is the scientific.
And what do you think of the that Russian man who wants to have his head transplanted?
Well, some people would call it pseudoscience. I would say that if it actually turns out to be a practical application, I would say that if there is any way that it can help advance humanity's goal to live forever, or to help increase longevity for our species, I would say that if there's practical applications that exist within it, I would say that it has to be viable in some way, shape, and or form.
Was there a Dan Brown novel that transhumanism was involved with? Was that one? Or I'm trying to remember what book it was I was reading that had transhumanism as part of the plot, but
there's been a lot of books that have that as the underlining premise of the story itself.
Yeah, I believe.
I'm pretty sure Dan Brown has written a book like that.
Yeah, I think it was the last one. The I can't think of what it was called, but it was the last one of the I can't even think of the character's name. The one that Tom Hanks plays. But I'm pretty sure that's transhumanism in there.
The one that I usually like to go to that really gives a pretty good aspect of it is if you look at Bicentennial Man, that had Robert Williams in it. Great movie, great concept, and that technology may have been an artificially created being wanting to become a biological being, but a lot of the technological innovations that were portrayed in that movie sort of go along the same lines as transhumanism itself.
I see. Okay.
So the Tom Hanks character was in the Da Vinci Code.
Right, it's the same character from the Da Vinci Code, but it's the last book in that series. I read it, and I can't for the life of me think of. I think it's got code in the title, or not code. That's the Da Vinci Code. I don't remember. I'll post a link to it in the notes because I can't remember it right now.
Yes, there were actually transhumanism-based principles in that movie. It was more where he was going up against the Vatican.
Yeah, that's
I remember the movie you're talking about. Yeah, there was an underlining. I think it touched on the Longevity Foundation or something. Was a offshoot of that.
Yeah, but there's one of the books also talks about noetics, which is not specifically transhumanist, but there are ideas in noetics that would be considered transhumanist, I think, as well. For example, trying to find the core of what the soul is and being able to transpose that. But
what houses the soul and basically transposing that onto an artificially created housing vessel storage device and using that to sort of escape the Grim Reaper indefinitely.
Right.
You run into the moral implications on that, though, of is it really you if it's only a copy?
Right. Like that's the whole Star Trek's transporter.
Yeah, I'm a huge Star Trek fan myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes,
That's
I
a
do
big debate.
understand the
That's the big Star Trek.
argument in the concept there.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, Nicole, how did you spend your 420?
My 420. Oh,
I don't know if is that a Canada thing?
no, it's not.
Okay. Do you have Earth Day?
Oh, yeah, we have Earth Day, but let's
You
put
don't
it
have
this
420?
way. I've had too many busy days with my computer over the last while that I don't want to celebrate anything. I just want to be done with the problems.
Yeah. Did you celebrate Earth Day, Mike?
Yes, I'm actually a very passionate environmentalist. So yes, I actually went out to Sierra, which is one of the older environmental groups in the continental U.S. Groups organized event here in Syracuse, New York, which is where I'm from, and that's how I celebrated. Went out and picked up some trash with some friends, and that was pretty much what my yesterday consisted of.
Wasn't it cold?
Well, it was snowing here earlier this morning and earlier today. So yes, anytime you get snow this late in the year, kind of makes me scratch my head, but I just go with it because the weather in Syracuse, New York is kind of hectic. And if you try to predict it, you are the fool in the end.
Yeah, I usually like to try to go out and hunt for morels on Earth Day, but it was too cold. I wasn't going in the woods. So.
And what is today again? I forget.
Is today
Openly
something?
Secular Day.
Yes, exactly.
It's something that a bunch of some more predominant names in the secular/atheist community came together, and we are celebrating this day as a day in which you can be openly secular about being an atheist and show your neighbors that it's something that they don't have to be afraid of because we're just your neighbor next door. We are regular people. We are not the scary boogeyman that you think we are. It's basically a project that helps humanizes what it is to be an atheist in your local communities. That's just one aspect.
Hemant Mehta was inviting everybody to tell at least one person today that they are an atheist.
Right. So, and I have a bit of I remember hearing about this, and my issue with that is secularism is not an atheist thing. I mean, most atheists are secular, but you don't have to be an atheist to be secular. So if they're going to have a day that's about secularism, then they shouldn't try to tie that to atheism. And if they're going to have a day that's about atheism, they shouldn't try to tie it to secularism because it's two different things.
Something you run into there, though, Dave, is that the term secular is a lot more easier to accept than the term atheist in some communities. And that's something that it's sort of just reclaiming the word and using it as a way to make the term atheist seem more friendly, because there's so many other aspects to what being an atheist actually is. It's only one small aspect of a person's personality and just the core dynamic of who they are. And it's just reclaiming that word to show that that we're normal people like everybody else out there. Right.
Yeah. But I have no problem. I get upset all the time, and we talk about it on the show all the time. How I get upset with people who refuse to call themselves atheists because they are undermining the word when they refuse to use the word. So to me, it's just another side of the same thing. Except that at the same time, it's also it's almost promoting the idea that secularism means atheism to some people. I think it kind of gives that impression, which is not. I have a friend down here in town who's a Nazarene minister, and he's as secular as I am because he doesn't want religion in government.
Which I completely agree. I know a lot of religious people myself that are secular, but when it comes to breaking this down for people that are in one way or another ignorant about what it is to be an atheist, using similar grammar-based tools, i.e. words that are pretty close to what you are, to break down and sort of bridge that gap is one of the best ways to go about it. And I feel that's sort of what's being done with Openly Secular Day. I think that this is sort of a gateway into really understanding what an atheist really is. I mean, if you can tell a friend that you're an atheist, that you're openly secular, that you are someone that doesn't hate religion just because it exists, but there are some guidelines to it that you disagree with, and can word that in the right way, I think that people in your communities, in the local communities in which this is going on, will be more accepting to the term atheist, given the approach you have.
How about, while we're on the topic of calling ourselves atheists, etc., how do you feel about somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson who refuses to call himself an atheist?
I think when you're at that high and dealing with legislation on a regular basis, I think it's a smart move. I think that what Neil deGrasse Tyson does for the community in general, and just what he does to open people up to what science really is a tool that needs to be recognized. It's something that needs to be out there to help when it comes down to it. I think that it is a public service that is grossly not being tapped into right now. And I think that people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, Brian Cox, the names could go on, are doing an amazing job at doing that. And just because they don't call themselves atheists doesn't mean that the service they do isn't one that will help mankind in the long run.
Oh, we've just lost David. He's going to come back in a bit.
So what are your thoughts on some of the news stories you have today?
It's fun. They're really fun. I'll just play for you quickly the first one.
A decision has been made concerning a planned barricade begun in 2002 and designed to defend Israel against Palestinian suicide bombers. The military had planned to construct a barrier made of wire in some parts, metal fencing in others, and concrete walls in still others. The problem was its path crossed directly through a compound housing a Catholic monastery and a convent run by Salesian monks and nuns. The court challenges have been raging for years, with the monastery's case being argued by a Catholic human rights group called the Society of St. Eve. The Salesian order, which is named for a bishop from Geneva named Francis de Sales, caters mostly to Palestinian Christians who make up roughly 0.004% of the 4 million Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. St. Eve advocacy officer Annika Heinlein had argued Israel's planned barricade, which would separate the monastery from the convent, would violate international law and conventions protecting religious minorities and the right to education and freedom of religion. In 2013, an Israeli appellate court decided in favor of the government, but on April 2nd of this year, the Supreme Court reversed that decision, ordering the military to once and for all come up with a new plan.
See, that's something that, the main media doesn't talk about. That wall?
Yes, it is. And that's something I think that more attention needs to be driven towards. I think that since you guys are covering that, I'm glad that it's at least being put out there somewheres.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your thoughts on the Catholic news article that Jenny just broke down, Nicole?
Well, to me, it's the whole. There's a big problem with Israel, and people don't want to touch it because they want to be, politically correct, and everybody is afraid to say anything against Israel. And there are things about Israel that is not correct. It's and some of the things that they do, and that wall is one of those things. Yes, you need it in terms of how can I say, in terms of protection, but there's a reason why they're in so much trouble, and it's not just because Muslims don't want to have anything to do with them. There are two sides to a coin, and in this with this problem, you've got two problems. You've got some on both sides. And Israelis with that wall, it's one of those things where they're not, they're really doing things against common sense. And it's really hurting the situation over there.
Yeah, but it's a powder keg to begin with when it comes to the political ramifications of doing anything with that wall. I mean, if you were just to tear it down tomorrow, you would have the powder keg below. I mean, the things that would go on there, I mean, you would have Iran would find that they have justification for going in and basically just bombing the Gaza Strip and just making it to where it was non-existent. I mean, and if that was to be done, that would be something that would start, heck, World War III. I mean, because if we go up against another nuclear power,
yeah,
there's going to be an issue that happens there. I mean, if nuclear weapons get involved, that's going to be a problem. Anytime that two nuclear powers get involved with each other, ourselves and Iran, there's a potential for that to be used. And I don't want to say it's going to be from our receiving end. It will probably be from the other side. That being the issue, Israel is a necessary thing to exist. It has to be there because of things that were done in the past. I mean, it was one of the byproducts of the Geneva Convention. I mean, the UN is the one that should be governing. I wouldn't say governing. They should be the ones that are looking out for that area. It shouldn't be just a joint coalition from NATO and ourselves. That being the case, we need to actually proceed carefully with anything that goes on in that area.
Well,
I don't think the Catholic Church overseeing what's going on there is the best results. That's my opinion.
Well, the thing is, it's a powder keg from every point of view, from every religion point of view.
Yes, it is. I completely agree.
Last year we had a story about a big fight that was because there's a church that's a Christian church that's being split between the Catholics and the Orthodox churches, and it got into a huge fight, and people were fighting at each other with brooms and with everything they could lay their hands on. It was really ridiculous. And then nowadays you've got a story that'll be discussed soon in the Infidel about changing a carpet inside of one of those buildings, and it's this time it's the Muslims, and they want to change the carpet, and the Jews are saying that it's terrible to do that because they should just leave it without the carpet, because then there's stuff that's on the actual floor that people could study. And so now it's just the idea of changing a carpet so that the guys who are praying will not hurt their knees on the stone is turning into a big fight. Throughout history, whether you want to go back to the Romans or even before, it's always been a powder keg. People over there have always fought one another for some reason.
And I would agree with most of the points that you made. It is anytime that somebody wants to just use a rug while they're praying facing towards their holy land, I mean, if it's for their comfort, let them do it. That's my opinion. But I'm not in that position to where my opinion would matter on this subject. I'm not in that area itself. I mean, it's all about how someone's interpreting the situation at hand. And that has to be taken into account. I mean, for one, if someone's going to use a prayer mat, what effect does it have on you at the end of the day is the question I would be asking.
Yeah, but in this case, it's the idea that they're uncovering and covering back again the same surface, that is where supposedly there are some things written or there are some illustrations, and that the scientists want to be able to look at. They're just looking for excuses to fight. And totally, I've always been against fighting all my life, and it irritates me when I see people do things like that. How do you feel about all the fighting over there?
I think at the end of the day, what point does it really serve? It's not. No one's making headway. No one's basically getting the higher ground when it comes down to it. So fighting is just killing off your manpower. Humans in your just soldiers are a resource when it comes to actually fighting wars like this. If you're losing a resource without actually getting a gain or getting a clear advantage in a fight, what point does the fight really serve? Is my, I guess, opinion on the situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always been against fighting, period, of any kind. When I was a teenager, there was a kid who wanted to fight me. And so what I did is I didn't punch him back, but he kept punching me. And as he was punching me, I was walking towards him, and he was backing out all the time and punching me, and he was backing out. Until finally I had him backed up against the wall. And I said, so who's won here? Who's got his back against the wall? I've always been a pacifist. I guess that's the wrong,
yes.
a pacifist.
A pacifist.
And anytime I see fighting of any kind, it just totally kills me. I hate it. I guess that goes with the my humanist side.
I'm a humanist at the end of the day, but I understand the ramifications of the purpose war serves. I served in the military for 6 years. I actually have put my life on the line for beliefs and principles in which I would put my life down on the line for. That being something I can understand, if it's pointless and it serves no purpose, if the fighting, as I said before, gives no clear advantage at the end of the day, what point does it really serve?
Well, over there, they're just fighting for the sake of fighting.
Yes, they are. They've been doing that for thousands of years.
Exactly. Like I was saying, it's been going on since forever. Shall we go on to the next story?
Yes, that would be perfect.
Kenya is high on the list of the world's most corrupt governments, and some blame that status for the violence that took place recently when 148 people were killed at the University College of Garissa. In the past few years, similar killings have taken place on a regular basis, and the citizenry has little confidence in their government's ability or will to do anything about it. In addition to that, tribal conflicts are responsible for the death of thousands across the country and displaced hundreds of thousands at a time, creating a slum now consisting of more than 1 million people near the city of Nairobi. Starvation and disease, particularly AIDS, are common there, and the government seems to be at a loss as to how to deal with it all. A group of Catholic nuns in the area, known as the Association of Sisterhoods of Kenya's Justice and Peace Commission, are attempting to do what they can to bring peace to both the slum area and the country as a whole. Since 1999, they have been training women to serve as peacemakers, who in turn pass peacemaking techniques onto others in their home areas across the country. When asked why they focused exclusively on women, they said that women are naturally peacemakers, since they are responsible for raising children. Many such women, of course, have lost their husbands to these very tribal conflicts and turn to one another for support. They often engage in crafts of various kinds to produce goods which can be sold. Another important factor in working primarily with women is the tribal tradition that a boy must seek his mother's blessing before going off to fight. In this way, by influencing these women, the cycle of violence can be broken.
Okay, so Dave is back with us. I'm going
Great.
to make changes to the screens, but otherwise, we're back together.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Because it's using the different camera now.
Okay. So, what do you think of our great story about Kenya and the women, being used as peacekeepers?
Are you asking me or are you asking Mike?
Both of you.
You just
Dave,
throw a
I'm just
question.
happy to see you back. So you want to go first?
Well, I missed most of the story, so I came in the middle of it. It was about Kenya putting women in the army, if I recall.
No, not in the army. What they're doing is they're teaching them to be peacekeeper, to talk to the men and to stop them from fighting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think that'll work. Women try that in bars all the time. It just doesn't work.
Well,
But how do either of you know anything about Kenya, like sociologically? Are they more of a matriarchal society than say Europe or the Middle East? Because if they're not matriarchal, I don't see the point.
I just don't see the point of it myself because, I mean, I'm more a fan of UN sanctions. And I think that if you basically, don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, UN sanctions will actually be something felt across the complete landscape of the country from an economical standpoint. But when it comes down to it, something has to be done, and it has to be more of a global coalition front.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it can't be handled at the local level because, I mean, look at the crimes against humanity or just the human atrocities going on in that local community right now. And look at how long they've been going on. It's been 30, 40 years of these type of regimes having a stronghold over those types of areas in Africa. I think that without outside intervention, how can we really plan on this situation resolving itself?
Right. Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like outside intervention was really proposed in that. It just seemed like the women were trying to find a solution to the problem themselves.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice if that's all it took was people's mothers and wives telling them, you're not going out today. That would be great, but I don't think that. I just don't see it. The sanctions, though, have when done properly, when done strictly, and not wavered on, because you always have you always have these outlier countries that don't follow the sanctions, and so it makes everything that you're doing pointless. But as long as the sanctions are, because it's worked with Cuba. It took them 50 years, but it worked with Cuba. It worked with Iran. That's the only reason they came to the table, was because of the sanctions. And they wanted the sanctions lifted. So it works if you just do it and stick to it. But because eventually you get pressure from you get internal pressure that either you quit being such a hard ass and go to the table, or there's going to be a coup because the people are starving.
This story reminds me of Lysistrata.
It's like actually trying to get a parasite out of an environment. The only way you do that is by making the environment in which it's existing inhospitable. And that's for the purpose that sanctions serve. That's something that you have to do. If something's going on and there's crimes and atrocities going on against the populace of that local government, and they're basically trying to punish their people for crimes that they haven't even done, and you're basically just trying to be the bully on the political scheme of things, I'm sorry, political sanctions are something that have worked in the past, and I would say that those are at the end of the day, those are what I'm hoping they go with. And I'm hoping that would be something that solves the problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think sanctions is definitely the best way to go, almost in every case. It has to be a small enough country, though. You can't really impose sanctions on Russia or China, but you could
Well,
because
it's
they
working
don't.
on
They
Russia right now.
Not really. They have enough resources that it would take 60, 70 years before they actually.
I
Um,
mean, but the difference is when your country is half the size of Asia,
mhm.
which China and Russia, they're self-sustaining systems. I mean,
Right.
if it's a self-sustaining society that actually can deal with not being on the global scheme of things when it comes down to it, that's something that has to be taken into account. I mean, countries like
Right.
Korea, like Central America,
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
types of countries, sanctions will work because they're not self-sustaining. Export
Right.
import is something that is the lifeblood of their economic structure.
Right. But actually, it's not working in North Korea because North Korea has uh, a cult of personality in power that is able to actually paint the outside world as the cause of all their strife. And so their people actually are so, at this point, so xenophobic that they're willing to deal with not having electricity, um, not being a part of the global community. They're willing to deal with that because their internal structure has convinced them that the outside is bad. But uh, that's a unique case. North Korea is a unique case. But sanctions really are not working in North Korea. And they are really not self-sustaining either at the same time. They're not a self-sustaining country, and sanctions are not working. Sanctions should have worked way well before now in North Korea, given
Well, we're
given the
talking about
situation.
it's been going on since the 50s.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's at
So,
least
And at
60
the end of the day,
years.
I've got to say that I still go with sanctions on North Korea. I mean,
oh yeah, better than
honestly,
war.
sanctions have to be there in place. I mean, it may not be
Hmm.
working for the local populace, but on at least a global front, a
Right.
nuclear powered North Korea is a threat. I'm sorry to sound like one of our Red Scare
Yeah.
individuals from the 40s through 60s, but a nuclear powered North Korea is a threat to
Yeah.
global security on a world front.
Right. Because of their xenophobia. Um,
Yes,
yeah. Right.
I've got to
Well,
agree with that. I mean, their xenophobia is the core of the issue at hand.
Right. Yeah. Because there's no reason they would be welcomed with open arms into the global community if they would just behave in a normal fashion. But at this point, even at this point, if the worst thing that could happen right now is Kim's government collapse. That would be the worst thing that could happen because there are people that are in there that would have no idea what to do, and they would be so afraid of the outside forces coming in that they would probably do something preemptive.
but
It's
the
not only
reason it's not
that would be the
working.
issue there, though. It's the xenophobia. I mean, even if Kim's regime was, and there was a coup tomorrow, what is it to say that xenophobia, that mindset, wouldn't survive past the regime itself?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
That's the problem that I wanna. We have to. The only way this is going to change is from the ground up. The mindset of the individuals that are in that geographical location has to change.
mhm.
They have to be able, and the only way you do that is through media relations. You have to introduce them to the technology in which they're being denied. You
Right.
have to actually show them the advantages going on outside your own country
Hmm.
to make them change their perspectives because there's a benefit to interacting on a global scheme.
Right.
There's a benefit to import export. I mean, half of our technological stuff that we have in our day-to-day use is from export. I mean, it's coming from
It's
Japan, it's coming
right.
from other parts of the world.
Right.
That
But
How
if we
many
were
things
to
do
if
you
we were
pick
to
up right now that say made in China?
right, but if we were to if like in some theoretical alternate universe, we were to cut off relations with all the outside governments and just be isolationist, become a North Korea unto ourselves, we wouldn't have a problem. We don't need imports. I mean, we do to maintain the lifestyle that we have, but we don't need them to survive or even be comfortable.
But that just runs into the same thing that I was saying about the China or Russia. If you're that size of a country, if you basically span from side to side of the continent you are on, you basically, it's pretty good chance you're going to be fine at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, we'll lose our creature comforts. Yes, we would lose a lot of our things that we enjoy in our day-to-day existence, but we would have food, we would have power, and we would have the basic necessities to exist, at least for the next 50 to 70 years.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think
and
longer
even if
than
that was the case, I mean, that's sort of a mixed result too, because most of my power comes from a hydroelectric dam. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, so my power comes from up north. And it's basically a trade coalition with Canada and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that dam supplies me the power I'm using for my laptop right now. That being the case, there's some areas in our country that would actually feel the effects more than others.
Right.
If we were to become isolationists tomorrow.
Yeah, we would.
And you're facing a huge problem right now. Is that California is not the only place that's where you're going to have a drought. They're talking about 40 different states over the next 10 years that will be facing droughts as well.
Right, but those states are all Western states, and California is
40. 40 states are all Western states.
For drought. Yeah, that's all the droughts in the West.
Yeah, but that's 40 states that out of.
Yeah, but it's still all in the West. It's like from Ohio and Illinois west, and then California though doesn't really. California should have seen this coming 30 years ago and started and built desalination plants, because if you look at Dubai's in the middle of a desert, and they're perfectly fine as far as they have, like Las Vegas gets all its water from Hoover Dam, and north of Las Vegas gets all of its water from outside. A lot of it comes from California actually, and they're if they had their own desalination plants, California would have all the oceans to get water from, but they never built the desalination plants.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the water shortage is there, and it being said that there's only a year of water left there is something to be concerned about. But if they actually started prep work right now, like, don't get me wrong, I've got things I hate about William Shatner, but I mean, the stuff that he's doing to try to sort of further that cause is commendable. I mean, the work that he's doing towards that is something that has to be noted. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was probably a political stunt, and he's just doing it because that's where he's lives, but it's something that could help in the long run. I mean, for one, they need to actually draw out a financial plan. What do they need to be able to convert ocean to drinkable water? How do we need to, what's the financial numbers behind doing a project like that, and what would it take to get us there a year from now? That's what the California, and just because honestly, this is something FEMA should be involved in too. I mean, this is something that could have huge ramifications for the future of our country if one of our states basically has no drinking water, because there would be a trickle down effect. Pardon my poetic licensing here, but there would be a trickle down effect to other states that actually use the water that's in that state, and they would actually be feeling the repercussions of this too. That's something that has to be taken into the account here. I mean, Nevada, great example. I mean, we have right on that border, a few states over, we have a desert effect that goes on in our own country. Those deserts use water from that coast.
Right.
And if it's going on in California, how long is it before Oregon, Washington, and our other West Coast states start feeling the repercussions of something like this?
Yeah, I don't think Washington would ever have a problem. Oregon might. I don't think
Oregon
Washington
might. I don't think Washington. I was just using that as an example for another coastal state.
Right.
That was more just me going off on a tangent.
Yeah. But
Okay.
what's the situation like what's the situation in Baja? You never hear about that. It's got to be just as bad.
Probably would be that. I would have to agree with you on that one, Dave.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, talking about tensions, we've gone all the way from Kenya to California.
We're
It
using
rhymes,
the intro
but
right now. We're
let's just say that to close the story, that this reminds me of Lysistrata. I don't know if you're familiar with that story. It's a play that was written by Aristophanes, the Greek poet, and it's a story where women go on strike and they tell the guys, "You're not going to have any sex if you keep fighting," and they stop a war that way. So,
well, so this is an old idea come around new again. Then everything old is new
exactly.
again.
So now we're going to go on to our third story.
Okay.
In a recent poll conducted by Democratic polling company Greenberg Quinlan Rosner Research, it was found that the ground is rapidly shifting from underneath the feet of evangelical Christians. 1,000 likely 2016 voters had more favorable opinions of gay people than they did of evangelicals. Even among evangelicals, 45% of people in the 18 to 29 age group were okay with gay marriage, while only 19% of those over 50 found it acceptable. One theory put forth is that the dramatic shift in views has come about due to more gay people, including popular entertainers and politicians, declaring themselves openly. Another factor has been a shift in the message of gay groups away from a strict assertion of rights and more towards an appeal to love and commitment being desirable in all partnerships regardless of the sex roles. In any event, these shifts in attitudes are often generational progressions, and the only thing surprising about them taking place is that people continue to be surprised by them.
Did you write that article, Nicole?
No, I didn't.
Well, whoever wrote it did a very good job. I like the way that was written. It wasn't me either. So it must have been, was it 0 Point?
No, 0 Point has not written for us anymore. It's, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name right now.
Okay.
You'll have to give me a second. But
it'll be in the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will.
Yeah, I like the way it was written. If you're watching, whoever you are, very good job. Yeah, the idea that homosexuality is more popular in this country than evangelicalism is, to me, like it says in the story, not at all surprising today, but it would have been surprising 10 years ago.
And it was written by the Femi-theist.
The Femi-theist, okay.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I
it
think
just sounds
it's
like an emotional position, basically being subjective to bring people over to your way of thinking, which is something that, when it comes down to, if you're going to argue a position, don't make it one that you're arguing just to basically bring people to your side. Because if you're coming from an emotional standpoint, at the end of the day, you're never going to win with me. You're never going to sway me to your perspective, because I want facts, I want numbers, I want statistical information to back up what the heck you're saying. I don't want just an emotional position to try to sway my heartstrings. You're not going to bring me over to your side that way, so don't even try.
Yeah, but that's because we are more skeptical. But there are a lot of people in the in the general population who are easily swayed by emotional arguments.
True.
Yeah, and so the fact that and actually I think homosexuals are winning a lot of hearts and minds because of an emotional appeal. The like, for example, with gay marriage, the whole argument shifted from equal rights as like a political agenda to oh, don't we deserve what you have, which is more of an emotional appeal than it is a logical appeal.
well.
Great point. That's something I didn't even take into account.
Let's not all talk at once.
Yeah, let's not all talk.
So, Nicole, what were your thoughts on the article?
Actually, myself, I want to start off with a plug for the Femitheist. Her YouTube channel is called The Town Eccentric. She's a great woman. She's very good. And second thing is, I think it's great news. I think that it's fantastic that the fundies are losing the battle even amongst evangelicals. I think it's the best news we've heard in a long time.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The idea that evangelicalism and fundamentalism has had so much driving influence in this country for so long. I think a lot of it a lot of the problem that they're seeing is that they're dying off. They're an older crowd to start with and die off. But I saw an article this week that said that even while more and more young people are coming to atheism as and rationalism as their the religious nuns, even though the religious nuns are growing in number, we're still losing out as percentage of the population, and in the United States anyway. So in the United States, the Muslims, the Catholics, the like the Mormons, they are breeding so much faster because people who are rational are actually looking at world population problem and not having as many children, whereas these other people just care about pleasing their God, and so they're breeding like rabbits, and so we're still losing numbers as a percentage of the population, even though we're growing in number of adherents. That's all I had to say about that.
Okay, the show's been going on for quite a while now, so let's go to the Christian glitches. And I'm introducing you and the whole crowd who's listening to us to a Florida pastor called Bill Lytle, and he is really something.
I just knew. I told him, I said, I bet they go out there and film that sign, male leadership. And that's going to go out throughout the whole county. Do you know what we'd have had to pay to do something like that? That was probably $100,000 gift. I'm not going to thank the person that left the weapon, however. It just ended. God had mercy on that whole deal, but male leadership, don't you be ashamed you go to a church with male leadership. Every church that's right with God ought to have a sign, male leadership, because that's the only kind of leadership, both from Adam all the way to the last part of the Bible. It's all been male. This is a man's world. And all the men said, get up. There aren't many places that men can even rejoice anymore without feeling about half ashamed because they try to put you down or sue you or something. But brother, this is a man's world. You can say what you want, you can do what you want, but God made Adam in leadership, and it's going to end with a man in leadership. It doesn't make men better, it just makes, it's God's way. Amen.
It's God's way. Amen.
Yes. Wow. I like the way in the middle of it he quotes James Brown. This is a man's world. Are we all here?
Okay. Mike?
Yes?
Okay. Wanted to make sure if you were still there because I have a warning there on my Skype. So is it a men's world?
It wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl.
I like to think that's how we bring other bipedal mammals into the planet. So it's kind of hard to think that, not that you two aren't lovely men, but I don't think I'm having children with another man anytime soon based on the technological innovations in that field. There are some pretty great breakthroughs going on when it comes to reproductive means, but I don't think men are having children anytime soon.
No, but you know what? Theoretically, women could have children
Yes,
before
they could.
before men and men could.
Yes, they could.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a matter of
You could actually resequence the. You could actually take the genetic double helix, the genetic sequence of the individual that you're hoping to clone, or introduce the genetic byproduct of, and basically just bio. You could actually introduce that genetic sequence into a delivery system. Then 9 months down the road, theoretically, you have another living being that was created,
Right.
female.
Right. Well, technically, all you could really, in a sense, what you would do is you would take a sperm, remove the genetic information from the sperm, put a woman's genetic information in the sperm, and then fertilize the egg. So you would have a fertilized egg that, as far as the egg is concerned, was fertilized in the normal sense, but it was actually fertilized with the woman's genetics. So it's two women. So
We're getting to the point, though, to where we don't even actually need a sperm to be the delivery system.
right.
I mean, we're actually getting to the point where we could actually inject the genetic information into the egg itself, and that could actually be a feasible mammalian being 9 months down the road.
Right. There are already there in nature. There are amphibians that can do it.
Yes, there are, and that's actually been some of the driving research into those breakthroughs that we're sort of having right now.
And in England, they've got this thing now where they can make a three-parent baby where they use the genes of three different parents. I have no idea how they can do that, but they can.
I don't know. I don't know why they would want to do that, because that would really be confusing for the child.
Imagine the custody battle if everything goes south.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with that just are not,
Forget just spending weekends with the dad or mom. You've got third parents. Now you got to work in 3 weekends.
Yeah.
It would just be confusing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't care. I mean, I don't care that it's unnatural. Unnatural means nothing to me. I'm one of these. I'm not one of these don't genetically modify my food people. I don't care. I'll eat genetically modified food because all food is genetically modified. There's apples that we eat today are not the apples that they had 200 years ago.
Right.
And even though it happened through crossbreeding and hybridization, that's still genetically modified.
I mean, cross-pollination is one of the things that have been done for thousands of years. That's something that has been done since we started planting crops. So with that being the case, GMO foods, I'm sorry, world, GMO foods have been out there for longer than you think.
Right. Exactly. And the idea that they're taking, like, even one of the things that scares people is that they say, well, they're taking a gene from a frog and they're putting it in my banana. So what? It's the gene is not, too many people have seen the island of Dr. Moreau, and they're thinking that their food is some kind of chimera, and it's not. That's not what GMOs are. And who cares? I mean, if there's a problem with it, if putting nicotine from tobacco in an apple so that it doesn't get pesticides, if there's a problem with that, then there's a problem with that. But the same kind of problem can develop in nature.
Yep. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, it's been going on for thousands of years. It's been going on since the beginning of time. We're not changing anything. We're just speeding it up, and that's it.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. Well, we've been going on quite a while. I think we're pretty much out of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap the show up. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm all for
wrapping up the show.
I'm just the guest here.
Okay. Do you want to take a second to tell everybody the URLs for how they can find you?
Okay, so if you type in YouTube, if you go to the little YouTube search engine and type in Secular TV, you will find everything linked to me. You can find me on Twitter at The Neo Atheist. You can find me on Facebook at Secular TV or Mike Phelps, or if you type in The Neo Atheist, I will be there too. If you type in The Neo Atheist to almost any social media based site, you will probably find some incarnation of myself.
Cool. So you're the neo-atheist everywhere.
Yes.
Did you have a neo-atheist Tumblr?
Sure. I'm sure I created one of those. Probably hasn't bared much fruit, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and read the outro now.
And now we have a great look of your belly.
Oh, well, that's right, because the camera. I forgot. Yeah, I was using the other camera, so I was able to just close the laptop, but now I can't do that. So I gotta look over this for a second, so I can read the outro because it's not on this screen. Okay, that's all for today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's news stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Search, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd like to thank Mike Phelps for participating in today's podcast. Thank you again, Michael. And Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I am Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.